welcome to my escape. Today, we're going to do a video on the Fortuna series. I own the first two. I have read the first two. So Fortuna is a fantasy romance set in like the contemporary human world, but also with like the fairy world aspects to it. So the two worlds are connected and there's doors that kind of go between them, but you really know. The human world does not know that fairies or creatures exist, but obviously like fairies exist in the human world and they're able to blend in. So Fortuna is not a fairy, but she is a creature. It's not really a secret because you find out on like page 3, but the back doesn't tell you, so I'm not going to tell you because this first part is spoiler free. So she's a creature of some kind. Her brother has been missing, and then she gets a lead on her brother, and she basically is like, no matter what, I'm going to get him and I'm going to bring him home. So then she gets dragged into the world of fairy, and she's put up against all these like trials and obstacles because she will do anything to free her brother. I have seen a lot of creators talk about it online. I thought I would like the first one more than I did. I didn't love it. It was kind of very mid for me. It wasn't worse. It wasn't the worst. I didn't hate it. It just didn't really stand out as anything new or memorable. With that said, I had already bought the second one because I bought them together used. So I already own this one. Again, this is spoiler free, so I'm not going to get into this because it'll spoil the second one, but I will say, no matter your thoughts on Fortuna, whether you loved it or whether you really didn't, read Restless, Slumber after. Give the series at least 2 books because, oh my god, did I love this one. And I was hooked and I was invested, and yes, and now I'm obsessed with the series, and I'm wondering how and when I'm going to read the next ones because there's 2 out and then a third coming in August. So there's going to be 5 in the series. I don't know if that'll finish the series, but there will be 5 by the end of the summer. And I can't find these books used anywhere else. They are online. I could purchase them, but we'll see. But I want to get into the series. I will be crushing it this summer somehow, some way. So that is what I will leave you with the spoiler-free one is no matter your thoughts or opinions on Fortuna, and no matter my thoughts or opinions on Fortuna, it's worth it to get to Restless Slumber. So I say go for it, read it if you want fantasy romance, if you like kind of like the fairy worlds, hop into it, love it, live it, all right. And that there is where we're going to end the spoiler-free portion. So now into Fortuna itself. Again, I gave this like a 3 stars. I was underwhelmed. I had seen this on a couple creators' pages, and I was like, I love fantasy. Like, I'm getting into fantasy romance. I love fantasy romance now. And I love fairies. F-A-E-R-I-E-S. Those kind of fairies, not like the Tinkerbell fairies. Unless you're in like a spin-off. But, you know, like a dark twist. But I love the fairy world, the Seelie and the Unseelie courts. You have that in here. And just, yes. I'm not a huge fan, however, of contemporaries that consistently like switch back between human world and fae world. I find that it often takes me out of the world. In this one, I almost wish they had done that more because the character is very much a real person. I will say that, like Fortuna, like the main character, is very much a person. The way she talks, the way she thinks, she is very much like a contemporary person. So in some of them, you can kind of like postpone that and then fit the character into the new world, and that's why I find the going back and forth between worlds kind of jarring. But this one, it was like she was very clearly like out of her depth and out of the water. And I liked when she would come back to the human world and kind of like regain some of herself and regain her footing and then dive in. We didn't get a lot of that in this one. And the world of the Unseelie court, it doesn't suck in the way that it's developed, but it sucks in the way it's set up. And it's supposed to suck. Like that's the whole point. The point is that it's oppressive and they have to hide, and this is what the king wants to change and all that. So it sucks, but you're underground in basically like a dirty cave for 90% of this book. And I'm just like, doesn't give me like the magicalism, you know, of other fairy books. So that was just kind of like underwhelming. I also didn't know who I was supposed to be rooting for. And I was just like, there are so many potential love interests and I'm not attached to any of them, and neither is she. So you have like the dream guy, which I'll get into him because what? And then you have like, so you'd have the dream guy, which is like what? Like friends to lovers, you would call it. And then you have the king, which is like marriage of convenience. And then you have Lori, which instant attraction, little bit friends to lovers. I don't know. I guess it doesn't have to be labeled with a trope, but I'm like, who am I supposed to be rooting for here? Because I don't like love triangles. So initially when it was just like the king, her, and the dream guy, Oliver, I think, I was like, no, I'm not here for a love triangle. I really don't care. And then as we got further into the book, I was like, I don't like this whole dreamscape like part. It made the story's flow really choppy because instead of going to sleep and being asleep, she's now having this whole other interaction. And I'm like, when does your brain rest? Because you need to sleep, like to actually like shut off your brain, but you're not. You're having an emotional roller coaster and you're having like conversations, and like I'm just confused. And I get that it's magic, so that I could like postpone a little bit, but for like the flow of the story, I was like, I don't like this. I don't like it, okay? Again, in this dreamscape, you are really trapped in one location, and if you're gonna do a dreamscape, make it different every single time. Don't always come back to the same grassy hill. Why? Sorry. I just didn't like the dreamscape overall. I think Oliver is boring. It's interesting in like the is he real or is he not? Like I think he's real. I don't think he's like part of her. I don't think she created him. I would almost say like she stumbled into his prison or something like that. But I'm not entirely sure. And I do like that. I do like the fact that I don't know exactly what's going on there. But I just, maybe because his name's Oliver, which is just like a minor thing, but I'm like, who names a mythical dreamscape man Oliver? If that's not his name, I'm gonna be so embarrassed, but I hope it is. Anyways, wasn't really a fan of that. Didn't like the dreamscape. It was boring. It was one location. I didn't care about like their character dynamics or their character interactions. And I was just like, girl, you should be asleep. Like it's not worth your peace to be a part of this. So also because of that, and like the book itself is fairly short, so it just felt very, very rushed. Like these trials that are like, no one's ever gotten through them, and she breezes through them like they're nothing. Okay. Literally, okay. So she studied for what, like 2 days? She read books for 2 days, and she's up against fairies that have lived forever, and what, they've just never picked up a book in their life? They just don't know their own history? Like, how is she able to win all these trials because she read a couple books when all of these queens before her, who I'm sure were way more prepared than she was, failed them? You know, I couldn't really get behind that aspect, and I know it's because, like, she's a nightmare, but literally no. Also, the Leviathan deserved so much better. So much better. That was terrible. However, I did like the patience of the king, obviously, and his lack of pushing his need for consent, but he's got too many secrets, and I just don't really understand why he was like, Fortuna, I must have you. Let me loose this secret about your brother on you. You know, like that whole thing, I didn't feel that. There's some chemistry between them, but it doesn't make sense, and I know it's supposed to be like keeping you in suspense, keeping you hooked. I'm not hooked. I'm just like, explain yourself. Because this makes no sense. Like, you make no sense. So I didn't love that either. But I did like Fortuna. I did like how real she was and how petty she was, because frankly, me too. Like, me too. So I did like her, but again, it was kind of like mid. In this review, like, I have been very negative. I didn't hate all of it. Like, I really did like Laurie, and like, that twist you kind of saw coming, but not necessarily to the degree of which it was. And I actually thought Laurie was going to be somehow tied in with Oliver, because I was like, maybe she is, like, creating people, or maybe she's able to see into, like, a third world, because Oliver, obviously, it doesn't exist outside of her, or, like, other people can't interact with him outside of her. And I was thinking, like, the same for Laurie, because I was like, there is no way that everybody else sees this man, or knows this man is just hanging out with you, and they're all fine with it. But I didn't expect it necessarily to the degree that it was. So there were, like, twists and stuff like that. I did like Fortuna, I did like Laurie, I did like their relationship. I thought the dynamics between her and Damon were kind of, like, interesting and, like, upsetting, but in like a way that like the book was designed to make you a little bit upset in that sense. So I did like that. There were stuff again that I liked about it. It wasn't a complete no for me. It just wasn't. I didn't really understand the hype behind it that I had seen from other creators. So yeah, I just ranked it 3, and I was like, I'm gonna put it down for a bit. I was like, whatever, I'll just pick up the next one. And I did, and thank goodness I did. So before I get into any spoilers for the second one, if you've read the first one and you're debating picking up the second one, do it. Do it, because I loved the second one. I think I gave it like 4.5 stars, and it doesn't sound like there's a big difference between 3 stars and 4 stars, but in my mind there is a huge difference between a 3-star book and a 4-star book. Huge difference. So that will bring us into Restless, Slumber. Again, if you read Fortuna and you're not sure about it, pick up this one. Read this one. I really, really liked this one. It's significantly longer, but I really did love it. So don't let my review of the first one hinder you from going into the second one. But if you don't want any spoilers, stop the video here, because now we are going to get into spoilers of Restless, Slumber. Okay, going back to Fortuna, I love how petty this girl is. I love it. She's like, I am going to get my revenge, even if it is for the smallest thing. The smallest thing. She got slapped. She got slapped in the first book, and she was like, I'm going to make this person swear, like, allegiance to me for life and be my personal guard so that they have to follow me around because I know they hate me, and that is punishment. Fortuna, I love you. I understand you on like a spiritual level. I get it. I get you. So I love that. Also, for one of the like negatives of the first book was how long they stayed at the Unseelie Court. And in this one, they continuously jump back and forth, and they're in the real world longer than they are in the fairy world, but they still get the fairy world. So you still do see the contrast, but you spend longer in the real world. And I'm like, yes, I love this, which is weird for me because normally I want to spend more time in the fairy world, but this fairy world is like so dreary and boring, which it's supposed to be. I do understand that. So that's not a negative in terms of like the writing. It's just like a negative in terms of like my entertainment. So I very much, very, very, very much preferred her and like the story in this one. Not her, sorry. I like Fortuna in both of them, but I very much prefer the world setting in this one than the other one. With that said, the dreamscape. I thought I didn't care about it in the first one. I really could not care less about it in the second one. Like, could not care less. I was like, are you kidding me? Get over it. Honestly, Oliver can fade. Sorry, not sorry. And I do understand, like, why that upsets her, but whenever the book is in the dreamscape, I'm just like, I'm bored. I'm bored. I don't care. I don't like Oliver. Something about him, like, just sends up, like, warning bells. And obviously it's because, like, we don't really know what he is, and there's secrets there, and I don't trust him in terms of that sense, but also just because I don't like him as his character is. Like, even taking out, like, all the suspense of, like, what's going on, I just don't like him. So I just don't care. I don't care when she's in the dreamscape, and then because she's in the dreamscape and, like, that's taking up space in the book, you get less of, like, other stuff. Although this one is thicker, so I didn't necessarily feel like I was missing as much suspense in her, like, living life. Whereas in Fortuna, I did feel like more time should have been spent on, like, the trials and stuff like that. But in this one, dreamscape could absolutely get rid of it. But knowing that Laurie and the king have a past, I am here for a throuple. I am here for a throuple of kings and queens, or kings and queen, but I am not here for a love triangle. So if it's either or, don't care, don't want it, I would rather have neither. But if it's both, then I'm here for the story. I hate love triangles. I can't stand them. I just don't care enough. I really just don't care enough. Like, she's a queen. She's got bigger things to worry about than picking between you two. But I'm definitely here for them kind of, like, needling each other if in the end it's just all going to be one happy throuple. I'm here for that. I love Laurie in this one. I love how he just stirs the pot and just stirs the pot and just stirs the pot, and he does not stop. And he does everything he can to mess with the king's head. And I keep calling him the king because I can't remember his name, but it starts with a C. Colin, maybe? Cohen? Don't know, don't care. As you can see, he's not my favorite. He's not terrible. They have their cute moments in here for sure. I just would have liked more background on why he did what he did early on. Like, why was it so important to him to have Fortuna as a queen? That still hasn't been revealed even at the end of the second book, and I don't understand why. And it's one of those things in writings where you can keep your readers in suspense and be like, there's a secret you don't know, there's a secret you don't know, there's a secret you don't know. But when it's so, like, integral to the story and integral to the beginning of the story, I'm 2 books deep and I don't know what it is, and at this point it's just irritating. Like, it's not suspenseful, it's not making me want to know more, it's just irritating that I don't already know. So that really detracts from his character because I don't know his motives, and I don't understand why he is so, like, because it's just insta-love. Without the background, it's just insta-love. He's just insta-obsessed with her, and that's why he's going to all these lengths to, like, make her want him, and, like, these dates and everything, which are cute, but if they're insta-love and it's just because he's obsessed, that's not cute. I'm bored. So I would like more of that. At this point, I'm definitely, like, more towards Fortuna and Laurie because the king bores me. The werewolf, I love. I definitely thought it was just going to be, like, she adopts this werewolf, and then it's going to be basically, like, she has a dog. And I was like, well, that's not really great, because you've already established, like, that he's a person. Like, he's actually a person. So I did like how we got to see him as a person, and we still get to see both, and he has his own struggles and trials and stuff going on. I really, really appreciated that. I love a good dog in a book, but I did appreciate that, like, he's not a dog. He's a person, and he deserves to be a character, and they respected that in here. So, love that. Love the little, like, side quests they went on to, like, bring him back to the pack, and how random that was, but then how it just fit in the story. And I was like, oh, honestly, facts. I'm not angry about this because, okay. There was also, like, the random side quest about, like, the siren. I was like, all of these are just, like, super, like, I don't know, side questy. They really are side questy, but it was working, and I loved it, and I think I loved it because of the characters. Because there were so many characters that got introduced that I'm like, I would like to see more of you. Like, the side characters were way more developed in this one than they were in Fortuna Sworn, especially, like, the characters that, like, you like, and the ones that you're like, oh, are they going to be back later? You know, is she going to have alliances with this one later? But then also, like, her enemies. This is, like, chaotic, but just thinking of her enemies, the first, like, the opening, like, I'm gonna be queen scene where they all have to, like, swear allegiance and, like, promise something to her. Girl went all out. She did not hold back whatsoever. This is why I love her. This is why I love her, because I'm like, facts. You are a nightmare. You are a queen. They have to swear something to you anyways, so might as well make it count. Oh, I love it. 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 Also, looking at the cover, first of all, I love this cover. I think it's gorgeous. It's, like, very fan-arty. Her dress is phenomenal. Also the shoes. Also, like, the big werewolf beside her. Yes, yes, yes. What is this big thing behind her? Am I supposed to know what that is? Because by the end of the book, I was like, I should probably know what that is, but I don't think I do, unless I've forgotten. I don't know what that is.
So, editing Katie here, I think that is supposed to be, like, her throne and the Leviathan, now that I'm thinking back on it, because they did talk about how they made her throne be, like, the beast she killed, and how that had, like, some psychological effects. So maybe that's all that is, and I'm definitely overthinking it, but welcome to my theory that it's actually Oliver. Stay tuned.
I keep thinking that's Oliver, though, to be honest. I keep looking at it, and I'm like, Oliver? Okay, my theory is that and I don't know like where I've gotten this, but my theory is that Oliver is a monster and he's trapped in some sort of like mental jail, and I think it might connect to like her parents. Like they put him there, or they were like charged with keeping him in this like mental jail because they're nightmares, right? So they could literally feed him nightmares and like check in and like go like in and out of this dreamscape. And then once they died, it passed on to her because she was like their eldest child, but she didn't know that. So I think Oliver might be like playing games and like getting like her to, I don't know, love him or somehow like break him out of this. So I'm like, is that Oliver's true form at the background? I don't know where I've gotten that from, but I don't trust Oliver. I don't like how he appeared as soon as the parents died. And I mean, it could be trauma. Like maybe he's like, I don't know, an angel who's keeping her nightmares away. I don't know. I just don't understand why an angel would keep her nightmares away, because we don't have any answers on like why Fortuna is important, aside from the fact that I love her and she's awesome and she's a little bit petty. But I just keep looking at it and like it's just pretty. It really is just pretty. But I just keep looking at that monster thing in the back and I'm like, that's how I picture Oliver. But I also don't like Oliver, so that makes sense why I made him this ugly gray monster thing. Now we're gonna get into the ending, and this is where it's gonna get very, very spoilery, because the ending is like a twist. What? I was shook. I was shooketh, okay? First of all, when the fighting started, I was like, if you kill either Fred or Marie, I don't remember. If you kill either of these like nice neighborly grandparent figures, I will riot. A page later, they kill Fred. No. Unnecessary. So unnecessary. I was so upset. I was like, why would you do that? But then I was also like, hey, but now I know going into the Restless series that she's not afraid to knock off someone you like. So I was like, some fantasy romance I find not, like they struggle with that, where they really like they'll do it and then they go back on it, which we'll get to. But her, it gave her some validity that she's gonna stick with these things. And then they killed the king. And it was kind of anticlimactic the way he died. I would have liked like more, like if she's gonna kill him being a nightmare, like we better see like a blast of a nightmare, not just like my eyes turned red and I looked at him, you know? Kind of didn't make him seem like this all-powerful being type of thing. And then he died, and I was like, no way! And then I was like, well, that deals with the question of, is it a love triangle or is it like a menage? It's neither. He just died. So I was like, there's no way. And then I was like, maybe Laurie will do like some magical thing, and then like the courts will be tied to each other or something, or like maybe he'll pop up in the dreamscape, or maybe we'll just never see him again. So I was a little shook, but I was also like, this is kind of cool, because I wasn't that attached to him. So I wasn't overly sad. I was more shocked than sad, but I was kind of like, I could have seen, like, I would have liked more character development, so I did feel like he was a bit of a lost opportunity, and I didn't really understand why he died, but I was like, maybe it'll like further book 3. And then we have like the whole grieving couple things. Like, I don't really love to read about grief, and I know that it's like a thing and it's life and like all that, but I read to escape. So if I'm escaping into somebody staring at a wall watching paint dry for 5 pages because they're trapped in their grief, I love it. So we had that, but it didn't go on forever, which I really did appreciate. And then the demon? Where did that come from? How do we have fallen angels and fairies, and well, fairies are fallen angels, but how do we have like the fallen and fairies and this history there, but a demon has never been mentioned at any point? I feel like they would have been mentioned, considering fairies are literally fallen angels. I feel like demons would have been mentioned at some point, but no, then she's just like, frick it, I'm gonna go find myself a crossroads demon. And I was like, okay, a little bit out of place, but I do like the whole crossroad demon storyline theme thing. So I was like, okay, well maybe this will be good. And then absolutely disgusting scene. Did not love that at all. Really wish that was like not described as much. Gave me the ick. It was supposed to give you the ick, right? I realized that. So that whole thing happened, and I was like, ooh. And then Cohen, I keep calling him Cohen. Then what is his name? Colin, the king wakes up, and that's that. And on to book 3. That wasn't a cliffhanger that actually makes me want to read book 3, to be honest. I was like, this was completely unnecessary, and she should have known better, and this honestly does not fit her character. Doesn't fit her character. Yes, to the extent where she'll, like, go to any extent to save the one she loves. But I don't know. The whole thing just, it struck me as awkwardly placed, very forced. There was no groundwork laid for it, and I didn't love it. I did not love that. But I did love the rest of this book, up until literally, like, he died. The rest of it, I was, like, on the edge of my seat. I'm obsessed. I love. And then from that point forward, I was just like, I mean, there was potential for it to go in a better direction, and then she, like, solidified it by doing this. And I was like, okay, so now you have proven that you are going to go back on what you do. And also, I felt like Fortuna was very consistent between the first and second books, and then she went and did that, and I was like, this doesn't seem consistent with her character, or, like, what her character would actually do if she was a real person. I just didn't really love it. I didn't really love that. I definitely am still excited to go into the third book. I just often like push that part out of my mind because I'm like, I don't like it. Something about it just, it's not right. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me. So no, just no on that one. But yeah, I think I gave this like 4.5 stars. I loved it. I had way more fun. I, again, love the cover. I really want to own the rest of the series in like physical, like paper copies. But they're very expensive and I can't find them used anywhere. And they're like I think the third one's like $28 or something like that. So I might just get the ebooks, but I like these covers. I don't know why. They're very like fan arty. They're very like, I don't know, them, I guess. But we'll see. I do love how I got both of these used now that I know what they actually cost to buy. I was like, wow, I got a really good price on them. And I do like how I bought both of them at the same time because probably if I had just sat on the first one, I wouldn't have gotten into the rest of the series and I probably would have just like marked it as a wash. But this one was so good and absolutely worth it. And now I cannot wait for the rest of the series. And if I didn't have all of these books sitting behind me and like the pressure to read physical books because I need to, like the pressure is on my own self, but because I like set goals for like 90% and then I got all these books, I was like, I have to read physical books. Otherwise, I would have jumped into the e-copy of this one immediately. But now that I'm waiting anyways, I was like, but I really want the physical copies. So we'll see. In terms of where I think the story's going, again, these are just my theories. I have tried to stay away from any and all spoilers. I have seen creators talk about the first book in the series in general, but not about the second book. And I actually thought it was a duology, so I didn't even know a third and fourth book existed. But where I think it's going, I think Laurie's going to be angry that she brought the king back. I think the king is not going to come back normal, and I think she eventually will have to kill the king anyways. But I don't really know where we're going with this whole now there's demons kind of thing, and she has this trauma, but like she didn't save Fred. I would be so upset if I was like the neighborhood grandma, and I was like, you couldn't have just thrown like Fred's soul in the mix. You couldn't have just like maybe asked and been like, is this a possibility as like an add-on? You were already there. You were already willing to sacrifice. You didn't even ask to see if you could bring back the love of my life. Seems a little selfish to me. Fred deserved better. Just saying. But yeah, that's my review of the Fortuna Sworn series. Thanks for watching. Comment down below if you've read the series or if you want to read the series. Have you read the third book? And am I going to like it or am I going to be very disappointed? You can spoil that for me. Don't put any like direct spoilers in there, but you can tell me if you think I'm going to love it or if I'm going to hate it. I'm still going to read it either way. Anyways, don't forget to like and subscribe. I post videos every Friday, so I'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye!